When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. We're very glad to have you with us today. Our topic, inshallah ta'ala, we will be talking about Islam in terms of da'wah, in terms of representing Islam and these sorts of things. And as always, we have with us in the studio Brother Idris Tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And he's our most famous guest and our brother, and we love him very much for the sake of Allah. We have also with us our studio audience with us today. Assalamu alaikum. And the format of the show, we will start off with Brother Idris giving some reflections about Islam and his thoughts on certain topics as he chooses. And we will also, inshallah, we will have with us a guest to discuss certain things. We will take questions from our studio audience, and at the end of the show, inshallah, we will take a look at our emails that we have that viewers have sent to Brother Idris, inshallah, and hopefully he'll be able to respond to a few of those. So, Brother Idris, what do you have for us today?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-mursaleen Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most compassionate, all praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon His final messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and the blessings and the mercy of Allah be upon all of you who are watching this program today. As Brother Omar said, today we're talking about how to present Islam to other people. How do we tell other people about Islam? All Muslims, many young Muslims write to me and they say, Brother Idris, we want to get involved in the work of da'wah, of inviting, of calling people to Islam. But we don't know what to do. How do we do it? It's something incumbent upon all Muslims to tell the world about Islam, to tell people about Allah Almighty and His beautiful religion. It's not incumbent upon us to convert the whole world to Islam. We're not called to do that. There will be many people who remain outside of our deen. They will never become Muslim. But there will be many people who from the beginning of time Allah Almighty chooses to call to Him, to call to Islam, to perfect their religion, and choose for them Islam as their religion. So, in presenting a few thoughts at the beginning of the show today, and this, by the way, is your show. It's called Let's Talk. It's a very informal style. We have the audience taking part and people writing in. Very simple style. It's not heavy at all. And we hope, inshallah, it's entertaining for people who are Muslim and people who are not. So when I was thinking to myself, what few words can I say about this da'wah that we talk about, this calling to Islam, this inviting to Islam, this invitation to the truth. And I thought I'd give you the example of a street in Cairo. I don't know how many of you have visited Cairo, the capital of Egypt, but in Cairo, there's a street in the middle of the city called Talat Harb. Shara Talat Harb. It's the main shopping street in the middle of Cairo. And it's very busy. Cairo is a very busy place. Bustling and people pushing, and it's hot and crowded. And the pavements, the sidewalk, where people are walking along, they get very crowded, because if you step off the sidewalk, off the pavement, you could be knocked down by a passing car. So the pavements are very crowded. At night time, what you find is the sun comes down and young men come out selling their wares on the streets, selling pots and pans and things. Well, if you go to Talat Harb any evening, you'll find a young man will come, and he'll bring with him a blanket, a sheet, and he puts you see the boys are all nodding. They've all been to Talat Harb. They all know. He puts the sheet on the sidewalk, on the pavement, and then on the sheet he's selling socks. So he puts rows of socks. First of all, he puts the white socks here, and then he has very pale grey, then very pale blue, and then blue, and through all the colours until he gets to black over here. Okay, so they look very, they're in very neat rows. The socks are very neat. And because it's very dusty in Cairo, he has a feather duster with him, and every so often he dusts the socks, to keep the dust off them, to keep them clean. So they look very nice. And then as well as that, what he does is there are many people selling socks, and there are many people pushing and so what he has to do, he has to attract the people's attention. So he shouts out, Ta'ala ya captain, Ta'ala ya prince, Ta'ala ya basha. Come and buy socks. Come, captain. Come and buy socks from me. Talata ba'ashara. Talata ba'ashara guinea. 3 pairs of socks for 10 Egyptian pounds. I'm wearing them myself. If you want, they're the very ones from Tel Aviv. And then what he does as well as doing that, he dresses nicely. Now he won't have a lot of money, so he'll wear a nice pair of jeans, clean, nicely ironed. He'll wear a t-shirt, maybe a white t-shirt. And then as well, because there are many boys selling the socks, he has to shout out. And the one with the best voice attracts the crowds more. So he has to shout in a nice way and maybe wink at passers-by to get them to come. Now you see what he's doing there, brothers and sisters. I'm trying to be amusing at this, but this for us is a model of dawah. This is what dawah should be like. If the people don't buy their socks from the boy, he doesn't go off crying and say they don't want my socks. He doesn't lose any sleep. But he knows that if ever they do want any socks, they know where to go to. So let's relate that to dawah. What we must do is we must present Islam in a very orderly and clean way. We must know what we're presenting. We must dust it and keep it clean and shining and respectable for the people, because what we have on offer is something very, very attractive. And then, like the boy, we must present ourselves nicely. We don't present Islam with dirty shoes. I used to teach in Damascus. And my students, my MA students, I used to say to them, they were following a course in calling to Islam in English. And I used to say to the boys, any of you who come to my class with dirty shoes, I won't let you in the door. Why, ya professor? I said, because you can't call to Islam if your shoes aren't clean. We must be very smart. We must have a smile on our face. We must be presented nicely. If all we have is a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans, they should be clean and ironed. And like the boy, we should shout in a very nice voice. This is Islam, my dear friend. Islam is so beautiful and so gentle and so sweet. And then if the people we're talking to and telling about Islam, they don't want Islam just at that moment, okay. We say to them, okay, there's no compulsion in our blessed religion. We don't force people to be Muslim. But maybe somewhere along the line later on, these people will say, oh yeah, I remember that Islam. I'll go back to that person. I'll go back to those people. There's a very famous saying, you'll attract more bees with a spoonful of honey than with a barrel full of vinegar. Our religion of Islam is so beautiful and gentle and sweet that we should always have a smile on our face. People will not be attracted to us by misery, but by the smile on our face they'll be able to say, there goes a Muslim, I want to be like that.
MashaAllah. Thank you for those deep insights, Brother Idris, as always. We're going to take a short break right now. Stick with us, because when we come back, we have some interesting questions that we asked some people, and we will, inshallah, take some questions from our audience as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the wonderful show, Let's Talk. I have with me, as always, Brother Idris in the studio. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And we have our studio audience with us as well. Assalamu alaikum. What we're going to do now, we're going to go to a segment of the show where we have asked random people their thoughts on the topic of today's show. Of course, today we're talking about how to promote Islam or how to represent Islam, how to talk about Islam, this sort of idea. So we asked a group of people, we brought them in and asked them, what do you think is the best way to tell other people about Islam? And we will take, inshallah, a short look at their responses, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
On this episode of Let's Talk, we're talking about telling people about Islam and the different ways we can do this. How do you think, Atif, how do you think, as ordinary Muslims, we can tell people about Islam?
Well, I think, in my opinion, the most important thing, how to implement Islam in our life, how to act like a real Muslim. It's not a matter of talking or telling or speaking. It's a matter of how to implement Islam in your life. So in order to call people or to tell people about Islam, to show them how Islam is.
So instead of just talk,
just behave.
Good behavior.
Exactly.
I think by being a good person and by giving a good first impression to other people.
Okay. And will that tell them about Islam, or will it tell them that you're a good person?
Both at the same time, because I am a Muslim and I am a good person.
Okay, very inshallah. And what about, why do you think people have a bad impression about Islam in the world today?
I think it's because of the terrorism.
Just by doing what we're supposed to do for Islam, what Islam is asking for. I don't think most of people are doing the right thing for Islam. Islam is just leaving yourself for Allah.
We just behave as religion told us, exactly like in Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we hold to this, we will give a real example and a very good example to people all over the world about Islam.
So why is it then that people have such a bad image of Islam?
That's because of the media. I'll give you an example. If an ant buzzed on a man's legs and bite him, they will call it a Muslim ant. This is not real. We see Christian people, we see people in the West holding a machine gun and killing people and the students in their schools everywhere. Why we don't call they are Christian? We only call them a terrorist. So why you stuck this word of the word terrorism to Muslims? If they do anything, just a man, just an ordinary man, make a mistake.
Okay, so
why you stuck it to Islam?
You think then that by good example we can tell the world about Islam? Is that enough?
No, it's not enough. We have to work on media and show Islam as it is to all people all over the world.
In my opinion, I think that Islam not need books or literature or websites to talk about it. The first step we must do is to be good Muslim. It is the first step. After that, to be good Muslim by obeying Allah and Prophet Muhammad, by praying, by respecting my father, by dealing with all friends, with all people, and after that I can tell others to obey the Islam laws and what he asks from us by asking them to do what they think is better. Islam draw a good picture for us or draw a good system for us to obey. So the first step is to be good Muslim and obey what Allah asks from us.
Well, those were very interesting thoughts that I think we all learned something from. Brother Idris, it seems that there was a common theme there, which was being a good Muslim yourself.
Exactly. You said, Bismillah, you see, none of those people were given a cue. We didn't tell them this is the answer we want. And nor did they hear what the other people were saying. And all of them included in their answer that the way to attract people to Islam is by good example.
MashaAllah.
Now, we also had the other thing about media, and so that's another episode, really.
Right.
There's a lot we can do on that. And we also touched on bad images of Islam, terrorism. That's another episode. But the gist of what they said was, good example is the key.
It's very interesting. Because, for example, it seems like you first have to work on being a good Muslim before the other things are applicable, really.
That's right.
For example, we don't want bad Muslims in the media.
That's right.
You know, we want good Muslims
That's right.
working there and
That's
so
right.
on.
And another important thing too, brother, is, I mean, this is another program too, but we call people to Islam. We spend a lot of money and time calling them to Islam and telling them about Islam. They declare Shahada, inshaAllah, and then we just forget all about them.
Right.
And then when they don't pray, and when they don't recite Quran and go to the mosque, you know, what kind of Muslims have we attracted? We don't need Muslims just for numbers.
Right.
Allah Almighty doesn't need any more Muslims. We've got enough who don't pray already.
Right.
We need good Muslims, as you say. So good Muslims, giving good example, living, as the brother said, according to the Quran and the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, is how we'll attract people. I wonder what the audience.
So do we have any questions from our audience? Yes, brother in the back, go ahead. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask you one question. How can you see the qualifications of da'iyah, preacher or propagator here in the Arab lands, and also in comparison with that of the Western one?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, do you mean, Brother Al-Barat, do you mean what qualifications do you need, or do you mean how qualified are they? Which one do you mean?
Qualifications for the da'iyah or the preacher here in the Arab lands, in order to be so impressive and to be rational to the people, and also in the Western countries. Indeed, there is something something additional needed for the Western countries.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We won't attract anyone to anything just by talk. You know, the world has moved on. And whereas in the past people listened to speakers and teachers because they were speakers and teachers, now young people especially listen to people because they've earned their respect. And they've earned their respect through good example. So I would say, first of all, we need to understand whether in the Muslim world or in the non-Muslim world, we need to understand how people tick. We need to understand how they think. And then that will influence the way we speak to them. So we can't call people to Islam. Let me give you an example. In the UK, where I come from, people don't talk about religion very much, but they love football. It's like here in Egypt, they love football. So to stand on a box and shout to them about religion, most of the people, not all, but most, they'll walk past. But if we can find some way of addressing what they're interested in first, I've learnt in life, you know, I travel all over the world talking about Islam, and I've learned we can talk about Islam without even mentioning Islam. We can talk about football, and we can talk about university, and we can talk about work, and people will just see it by our demeanour, by our good behaviour, by little words that we use like insha'Allah. We needn't say to them insha'Allah, which by the way means if Allah wills it to be so. But if we keep using insha'Allah in our conversation, these people are not stupid, and they'll say, I wonder what this insha'Allah means. You see, we're teaching them without teaching them. We enter a room with our friends, our non-Muslim friends, and we say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's, we don't say anything else. And it's for them to think, why is he saying that all the time? So we must be we need wisdom. Everyone wants to call to Islam, but not everyone, if truth be called, is qualified in the sense of, you know, they're not in tune with what people want. They're just telling people what they think they want to hear, rather than what they do want to hear. So there are two groups. In the Muslim lands, in the land of Islam, callers to Islam I'm generalizing, have the knowledge, have great knowledge, which they can take to the non-Muslim lands and encourage the Muslim communities there and help them, because they have the understanding. They know what the people in New York are like. You know, they know what the people in Sydney, Australia are like. So we are one Muslim nation, so working together, using the gifts from here and the gifts from that, we're not fighting against each other to talk about Islam. We should be supporting each other. You know, we're not this preacher's better or that one. Allah is the one we're working for. And Islam is the thing we're working for, not this man or that man. So it's a long answer. Listen to what people are thinking about, listen to their concerns, and speak to them in a language they understand.
Okay, thank you. Just to add something.
Is he allowed another question?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what word can you say to those who are claiming that no one have no power to speak about Islam or any religious matter unless he is qualified enough, unless he is Azhari, unless he is Sheikh, he is propagator?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our beloved Prophet, as-salatu was-salam, said that the qualification we need to speak about Islam is one ayat of Quran and a good heart and a good sincere heart. And you know, in another of these programs, I talked about how I was called to Islam. I was called to Islam by a poor little boy in the street greeting me with the greeting Muslims will greet each other in heaven, Assalamu alaikum, salam. He didn't know great books about Islam. So what we need is a good heart. We need to pray as Muslims and be good Muslims. We need to live good lives. That's what we need first. And then others can help us. You know, we've got a lifetime to learn about Islamic history. But we need a good heart first before we start.
MashaAllah. I think we have about 3 minutes left. Do we have another question to fill that time? Go ahead, brother.
How can we change the bad picture of Islam in the West after the action of 11 September?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If we had many, many hours, we could answer the question fully. A quick answer. One, not by sound bites, not by slogans. And there's no quick fix to this. Okay, that's one. There's no quick answer of how to do it. Two, you and I can't change the world on our own. I can't change the world. I'm not so full of myself to think I can. What I can maybe have some effect on is the man who lives next door to me and the shop I go in to buy my eggs. So the way we can begin to change people's mind is, as we've been hearing all along, is what's through good behavior. That's the first one. And then we can also, you know, young people like yourself are great ones for the internet, you know, and getting it. What we should try and do, not only get involved in good sites and so on, but coming on programs like this one, trying our best, setting good example, speaking simply and calmly and letting people see. You know, when people speak to me about 9/11, I say to them, well, I'm not a terrorist. I've never met a terrorist in my life, and the people in my building are not terrorists. They're simple men and women, you know, who are working to bring up their kids to serve Allah Almighty and one day go to heaven, inshaAllah. So very small steps. Small things, shwaya shwaya, as we say in it. Just a little by little. Not by doing great things, but slowly, good examples, speaking nicely. But first of all, praying. And basing all of our talk, grounding it all in prayer. Because it is Allah that will give it success, not just our sweet talk.
MashaAllah. That's a very great answer, Brother Idris, as always. Alhamdulillah. Well, we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we will have a special guest in the studio with us, so please stay tuned, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this wonderful show, Let's Talk. We have with us, as always, Brother Idris Tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And we have a very special guest with us in the studio today. We have Brother Suhaib Saeed, which is a very nice name with a lot of S's. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
And he is very active with the Scottish Muslim community, so he'll be able to give us some insight to that, inshallah ta'ala. And he's also here studying in Egypt at Al-Azhar University, which I hope most of our viewers know is very famous for a lot of different fields of study, but particularly their study of Islam and Quran and this sort of thing. So we're very happy to have you with us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Alhamdulillah. And of course we want to greet our studio audience. Assalamu alaikum. Did I already do that? I hope not. Okay, Brother Idris, how do you two know each other?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, first of all, I must say Sharafna. Sharafna, ya Habibi, you honor us by coming, and you honor me especially, because this brother has welcomed me so often to Scotland, to speak about Islam in Scotland, that I feel particularly delighted to be able to invite you today in Egypt to this show. So you're very welcome, Sahid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Perhaps you could just explain first of all to these boys, because we mentioned Scotland. Now, where is Scotland? Is it in England? Where is Scotland, first of all?
Well, Idris, you know very well, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom, so it's a neighbour to England. And, you know, politically it's part of the same thing that we call the UK, or Britain. But at the same time, Scotland, like the other parts of the United Kingdom, has its own nationhood and history. And to some extent its own culture. The people have, you know, a certain way of life that has similarities with our immediate neighbours and some differences. So people in Scotland are a little bit proud sometimes to be Scottish, and you know, the last thing you should try to do is confuse them with being English.
Okay, well, can you tell the viewers too, how many Muslims, for example, are there in Scotland?
Scotland is not a big nation. There's only about 1 million people in Scotland. Out of those, according to the census, there would be around 30,000 Muslims. Most of them are concentrated in the big cities, and that's the same across the UK. So in Glasgow, where I live, there are around 30,000 there. And then there are, you know, about 10,000 in Edinburgh and some other cities, so it adds up to actually about 50,000.
So 50,000 out of 1 million is a very small number.
It's a small number, but in some places people live more together, and you have some sort of significant community feeling in some areas. And then in other areas you wouldn't find a single Muslim in the whole town or village.
Before we carry on, I want to say something here that's very important for the brothers and sisters watching, and for the studio audience to watch as well. You know, I always say that this is the century of Islam in the West, because there are Muslim communities in the West, and in English we'd say they would knock the socks off communities in other places in the world. They are doing fantastic work, really super. You wouldn't believe the work that is being done in Allah's name in communities in New York and in Australia and in Scotland. And I'm so delighted that Suhaib can be here, because he's been involved, now he's studying at Al-Azhar, but you've been involved in 3 particular initiatives. If we've time, we'll touch on Islam Festival, Salam Scotland and Quranica. Okay? Can you tell us about Islam Festival, first of all?
Well, the Islam Festival is something that happens in Edinburgh every year in August, because you may know in Edinburgh there's a famous international festival. Many people from actually all around the world flock to Edinburgh for many cultural events, so things like music and dance and drama and comedy. Many things are happening there, film, and you know, sort of noticing the potential there for opening the doors to understand Islam. The main mosque, or the largest mosque in Edinburgh, which is the Edinburgh Central Mosque, opens its doors throughout that month, and has in fact an exhibition. It's maybe the only permanent exhibition in a mosque, certainly in Scotland, and maybe it's one of the very few in the whole UK, and we hope this is an idea that people will take more on board, because you have, mashallah, a fantastic exhibition inside. There is also, as well as posters which are explaining the basics of Islam, there are also multimedia things, there are films being shown, and those things are available to the tourists, you know, every day throughout August. And you'd be amazed at the number of people and diversity of people who come through the doors.
So let me just stop. This festival, the Edinburgh International Festival, it's a festival of art, ballet, music, opera, theatre. So, and these people come from all over the world. How on earth do you attract these people into your mosque?
Actually, just bear in mind those people are maybe the most open-minded of people because they're searching for cultural expression, they're searching for ideas, things that are new to them. And for many people, going to a mosque is a new experience. And the most important thing that we found was the need to just make the environment an open one, an easy one, a welcoming one. So this mosque has a few very nice features, apart from being, mashallah, a beautiful building that's in the heart of the city and a visible landmark which people now recognize. It also has a restaurant where people come and sit there, especially students sit there. That's throughout the year, even though it's a kind of outdoor restaurant. People come and sit in the cold just to have a nice hot curry, which is provided at a very good price. So this is something which has made the mosque well known amongst the non-Muslim or the general community, and not just the Muslims, of course, who come and pray in it. So during that month, as well as the open exhibition, there's also a number of events which are designed to catch people's attention, to provoke thought. We've invited Brother Idris a number of times before, always with thought-provoking titles through which we can access people's minds and hearts with some ideas that will make them think. And that's the important thing, because people would not come if the intent secretly or openly was to say, we want to take you and we want to change your religion and send you out of here as Muslims.
You see, one of the things I've always been impressed about, and I encourage anyone watching, if you have a spare week in August, go to Edinburgh, because the exhibition is truly remarkable and the events going on at the Islam Festival are really fantastic. But one thing that's impressed me very much, Suhaib, is that in your mosque, and the very beautiful mosque built by King Fahd, may Allah preserve him, King of Sardinia, the remarkable thing is that the community, the mosque community, it's fairly traditional community. But it seems to me there's been a great wisdom from the elders of the mosque in that they've allowed the young people to run this festival, because the festival's mostly run by young people. And the older people in the mosque they've kind of must have thought to themselves, well, really, this isn't our way of doing things. We're not used to non-Muslims coming into the mosque. But they've said, we see there's a future here. And I think that shows great wisdom on their part, and it shows a vibrant community, really, that it can happen.
Yeah, I think definitely it's needed from that community to be very open-minded about things, because it's not easy for people to accept the idea that many people will be coming through the mosque, not just in the exhibition hall, but coming up and seeing the interior of the mosque. While people are praying, people are sitting at the back and watching the prayer. And this is a very valuable thing that we're glad that we're able to do. And the community has to be a little bit patient, because sometimes people would think, oh, we don't want to be disturbed, we don't want non-Muslims in the mosque, even though there's no objection to that being the case, but some people in their minds, they have some misgivings about that sort of thing. And also the community is very proud of being able to raise the funds for this project from within themselves. So every year, it's by their donations and by their efforts that we manage to run the activities, and that's something
may Allah bless them
beautiful.
And reward them all, accept their efforts. Tell us about beautiful title that you have, Salam Scotland. It's a lovely, lovely title.
Well, Salam Scotland is a new initiative which is being put forward by the Scottish Islamic Foundation, which is a national body which is seeking to build bridges between the Muslim community, or if you like, even more broadly, Muslim world or Muslim civilization, and our own community, the Scottish community as a whole. And Salam Scotland is a festival of Muslim culture and life, which is going to be having its first year in 2010, and we hope, inshallah, it would continue after that. And really, it's taking that same idea that I was talking about, what's happening in Edinburgh every year, taking that idea and trying to apply it on, if you like, a national scale or a wider scale. And that is to allow people a window onto Islam through things like exhibitions, through things like talks and debates, but beyond that into a more cultural sphere. So, for example, among the things that's happening this year, there's going to be a film festival taking place in Glasgow. There's going to be some theatre events. There's going to be fashion events. There's going to be, through different media and through art, through photography, there's going to be different ways that people can access things to do with Muslim culture, Muslim life, that give them also an idea about the principles that Muslims live by, the faith that Muslims hold, in a way that is appropriate to the kind of environment that we're living in, in a way that can actually reach people's intellect and reach people's hearts.
I have one question. You were saying that the masjid that you have there You have it so that non-Muslims can come and witness the prayer and this sort of thing. In your view, what effect does this have on a non-Muslim, like somebody who's never been to a masjid before, and they go in and they see these Muslims making sujood, and they're all, after the Fatiha is recited, they all say Ameen, in this beautiful voice, because from my personal perspective, the first time I went into the masjid and I heard everyone saying Ameen, in this beautiful voice, I felt like I was listening to angels, really. Of course, later you come to find out they're just human beings. But if you could give some insight into what does the non-Muslim, if they've ever mentioned anything, or what do they experience?
Well, this sort of open doors phenomenon is something not unique to one mosque, although we were talking about Edinburgh Mosque. It's something which a lot of mosques take part in, and more mosques are, seeing the importance of it. And as you say, those visitors who come in, they're always struck by the beauty of the mosque, even if it's not one of the bigger purpose-built mosques, even the ones that are just made inside an old house. Just the beauty, they might notice a difference with their own place of worship if they, for example, come from a Christian background, as many people do in our society. An absence of chairs and pews, it's just open carpet. And sometimes if the carpet is nice and green, people say, this reminds me of a garden. It's very peaceful and serene. I've heard people say, would it be okay if I would just come here sometime just to sit and just to think? Would that be all right?
MashaAllah.
And I say yes, but maybe give me a ring first so that I can make sure nobody bothers you. But the point is, people really are struck by the beauty of the mosque. Generally, if it's got an absence of decoration, people say, how come there's no pictures? Then I explain how in Islam we tend to avoid, pictures, especially of people, to be venerated.
But you see, if I
just
interrupt, I think the clever thing you've done is, what we want to do is get them into the mosque and see the prayer.
MashaAllah.
But what they've done has been very clever. You've got to get them in the mosque in the first place. Because most people in London walking down the street, they don't say, I'm going to go into a mosque. Same in Edinburgh, they're very ordinary people. So what they did very cleverly as part of the festival in Edinburgh, they have, for example, tastes of the Muslim world. And so they have mint tea, from Morocco and different places, and different sweets, oriental sweets. And these ordinary people who are going to theatres and ballet and opera, they read about, that's very interesting. I'm not really interested in Islam, but we'll go and see these Muslim things, and they see artifacts and beautiful bowls, and then they say, that's a beautiful Quran. And, maybe I might go and look in the prayer room, So, we can talk about Islam without actually mentioning Islam. Now, I think we've not got much time. Can he tell us about Quranica? Have we got enough time for the glorious recital?
I think we have maybe just 1 minute if you want to be very brief.
Well, in brief, and it is a brief thing, Quranica is an arts organization which I started up about 4.5 years ago. And basically its idea is to use the medium of Quranic recitation as a beautiful art form. As indeed we listen to Quran recitation, we listen to our favorite reciter and we say how beautiful this is. But the idea was, how can we maybe use this as a means to attract non-Muslims to actually recognize the beauty of the Quran through the recitation, and then through that to recognize the meanings and the message of the Quran. And this is something which, we've worked with numerous reciters, we've done live events, we project the translation on big screens, and it's been a big success, and inshallah we'll continue to do this kind of event in the future.
MashaAllah. Okay, I think we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, inshallah, we will take some questions from our audience, and we will, inshallah, get into emails a little bit later from the viewers. So please don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this wonderful show, Let's Talk. I'm your presenter, your host, your moderator, whatever title you want to give me, Omar Dunlap. We have with us, as always, Brother Idris Tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And we have our wonderful guest, Brother Suhaib Saeed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I want to go to our studio audience for just one moment and ask, do any of you have any questions for our guest? In the back, go ahead, brother. With your wonderful pink tie.
Okay.
MashaAllah.
I'd like to thank Mr. Suhaib Saeed, and you are welcome here in Cairo. One question. I am truly thinking that there is a gap of understanding between understanding of Islam between Muslims here in the Arab lands and Muslims there in the West at all. So, can you agree with me?
A gap of understanding?
Gap of understanding.
Maybe you could explain briefly what you mean by that?
You are holding festivals in the name of Islam. You are doing numerous things in the name of Islam. But here, there are many people, even the callers of themselves, who are denying that you cannot do those things in the name of Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I don't want to comment on maybe what people do in different countries, but I know that where we're living and in our environment, we have to realize that if we want people to engage with us, we have to engage with them in a way that's suitable. And really in everything that we do, I would certainly agree that we need to go back to our scholars, our learned people, and not just do anything that comes to our mind that looks good, that we think is in the name of Islam. We should, of course, consult with the learned people. And we, of course, in anything that we've done, have consulted with our shuyukh or our scholars to make sure that what we're doing is something appropriate. And obviously there are going to be questions all along. Okay, what if non-Muslim ladies come into the mosque and they're dressed in their summer clothes, and how do we deal with these situations? And any of these things we discuss between ourselves and try to come to the best conclusion, and then ultimately we keep going forward, inshallah. And that, I hope, might answer your question.
Okay, you are doing that only for the sake of attracting the non-Muslims, and indeed we are here in their need to attract the Muslims themselves.
Well, I think the same thing applies. It's a good point, because sometimes we have a double standard. Like people are willing to engage with, say for example, a non-Muslim woman and talk to her and explain Islam, but they might feel very uncomfortable with, say, a Muslim woman who is not observing hijab. Now, obviously we have to try to have the same standard, the open heart towards helping everyone, wherever they may be in their life, and having an attitude that we want to present Islam, and ultimately every person will have their own relationship with Allah, and has to find their own path in life.
Thank you.
Well, I want to take one more question, and I know one brother in particular has been dying to ask a question. So go ahead, Yahi, with your question for our guest.
Assalamu alaikum. We know that the Prophet Muhammad didn't start in speech until he had said that who isn't honest isn't believer. So honesty was the weapon of the merchants to take the Islam from the Middle East, from the east to the west. Now they allege that the Islam went there by swords and violence. When you were accused such as this accusation, how did you defend?
In terms of the accusation that Islam nowadays is, has a violent streak, as it were. Bismillah. I think, in a way this has been discussed a bit earlier, is generally that we need to not always be on the defensive. Yes, I think if people have sincere questions, even sometimes accusative questions, we do need to address those and not avoid them. But we also need to bring people back to maybe the core issue. Other than the events that are happening today, Islam, or any system or any way of life or any religion cannot be judged purely by what the followers do, nor by what the actions of some maybe very extreme minority of people may be doing, or the worst of people may be doing. But also we have to look and balance that with the majority, with the best of people, but more importantly, judge it by its origins and its sources. And of course in Islam we know this means the Qur'an and the teachings of the Qur'an, and the teachings and example of the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace. And this is what we need to bring people back to. And try to avoid being diverted by all the side issues, however important they may be, and try to bring people back to the question of belief in one God, and this is what Islam is all about.
And just to add to that, brother, we must all, as ever, Suhaib is very wise in his answers, but we must always remember Islam is perfect. And Muslims have nothing to be ashamed of where Islam is concerned. Muslims are not perfect, and Muslims do things wrong. But we must be very clear that Islam can answer any question. And as Suhaib says, we mustn't be afraid of any question or engaging in dialogue with anyone, of people of any religion or of none, because Islam has the answer. Maybe as Muslims we don't know it. If we don't, we should go and look for the answer. But Islam has the answer. But as you can see, all of the answers, you need to go to Scotland. We need another program at least to talk about this. You need to go to Scotland, and maybe you can work something out to get some to go, you know, from the Muslim world to Scotland.
You're welcome.
Just take a microbus. Okay, well, these were very insightful and very poignant answers from both of our guests today. I'm very pleased to have both of you with us. Of course, Brother Idris is our permanent friend here on the show. But Jazakallah khair, Brother Idris. Jazakallah khair, Brother Suhaib. I want to go to our emails very quick for you, Brother Idris. We have a few. We have one from Mahmoud in London. He says, can anyone be a part of our studio audience? Can they have input for topics for future shows? And can they suggest guests?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There is an email for the show. The show is called Let's Talk. The email is talk@huda.tv. talk@huda.tv. If you write to us, if you live nearby and want to be in the audience, ahlan wa sahlan, you're very, very welcome. If you want to suggest guests, obviously there's some people we can't get, you know.
Right.
But if the guests are reasonable, we can invite them, and certainly topics. If you want to suggest topics that we will talk about, because it's your show, we want to talk. So the answer is yes, yes, and yes. Talk@huda.tv.
Okay, I think we have time for at least another email. We have Brother Kamal Muhammad from Manchester, and he says, I think your new program idea is a very good one. It's talking about Let's Talk. He says, Inshallah, will open up new doors and avenues for us all to talk about Islam. In this age when the media is controlled by many people hostile to Islam, we need as Muslims to use every possible way of getting our message across. And he says that his question is simple, but the answer might be difficult. Most Muslims do not appear on TV programs, so how can we as ordinary Muslims get involved in the media?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay. At first, if you're sitting at home thinking, what's the answer going to be to that question? We have here, you know, a group of young men. I would guess none of them have ever been on TV before. You know, they are. So it is impossible. It is possible to take part in and do the. It is possible to get on TV on these shows. Huda TV is an example of something that Muslims are doing to be involved in the media. But there are other things. It doesn't just need to be Islamic channels. I mean, you can all write, I guess. You can all write. You can all email. You know, there are many programs on the TV. As Muslims, we have opinions about things. And when things show on the TV that we're not too happy about, you know, well, go on the computer. As Muslims, we spend hours chatting on the internet about silly things to people we'll never meet in our lives, you know, wasting our time. We sit watching the TV, watching silly nonsense. You know, well, as well, we can get the old email out and write to the program and say, you know, I object to this. And there's a rule, you know, there's a rule that people in public office go by, and that's when they receive an email from one person, they take it that email represents the views of 1,000 people who couldn't be bothered sending an email. So someone, a senator in the United States, or a member of Parliament in Canada in the House of Commons, he gets one email, he thinks, oh yeah, that's interesting. If he gets 10 emails the same day, he's going to sit up and listen. You know, so there are many ways we can get involved. We can get involved in the internet. We can put it the Facebook, you know, Facebook, and there are all sorts of blogging sites, and we can create our own websites. There are many, many creative things. And again, just a word about chatting. A lot of it is a waste of time, really. And we're chatting to people we shouldn't be chatting with to start with. And sometimes we're talking about silly things that's going to have no effect. If we're speaking to people on the internet, keep the limits good and honest and pure, and speak about simple things. Don't try to convert the world over the internet, because it won't work. but just be honest. And people throw mud at us. You know, don't throw mud back. Just calmly, and we're not to be taken for fools as Muslims, but Islam is very strong. And we respond in a strong, manly way to people who use bad language. And, you know, so it's all about Islam, you know. Islam is good and genuine and honest and sincere and strong and sweet and gentle, and we should be all of those things. So ordinary Muslims can get involved in the media, you know, and there's a great need too for young Muslims, like these young men here, to get involved as journalists, get involved in television channels. In one of the other programs we had someone from Islam Online, you know, good websites, Islamic websites. There's so much that we can do to get involved.
You know, this reminds me of a joke I once heard. A Muslim said, well, it may have been serious actually. He said, there was this brother and he was always standing up in the masjid saying, we need more Muslims in the media, we need more Muslims in the media, every day for weeks. And finally somebody stood up and said, what's your son do? He says, oh no, my son's an engineer. You know, so this is something we need to think about. Let's make sure we're being you know, thorough in all aspects. When we say that we need more Muslims doing these sort of things, we're saying this to ourselves first and then to everybody else, and I'm sure everyone agrees with me.
I wonder, are there websites we could tell them about that you're involved in, Brother Suhaib?
In terms of the projects
the things we talked about, yeah.
So,
maybe the viewers might want to know these.
So for there's islamfestival.com for the project in Edinburgh.
That's easy, islamfestival.com.
There's salamscotland.org, salam with 2 A's. That's for the national festival. And that will do for now, inshallah. If you see those, you could follow up, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Well, we're very glad to have you today, mashallah. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, thank you, Brother Idris.
My honor to be here.
And we thank our studio audience, and we thank our viewers, and we hope to see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear